Welcome to Birken Forest Monastery live stream. I am Ajahn Sona, and we are engaged in some questions and answers. So let's proceed with the first one, Pia.
Ajahn, our first question is from Ryokan from Arizona. Ajahn, can you talk a bit about combining Vipassana with the first four jhanas?
Well, we're off to a good start, aren't we? Well, that's an advanced practice. I mean, I hope that nobody out there thinks that the four jhanas are something that you should expect necessarily. If you're a lay practitioner, the accomplishment of the four jhanas, the four stages of deep samadhi, are monumental accomplishments, and as well for monastics. There are sort of schools, I suppose, that take these things somewhat lightly and attribute people attaining these things quite easily, and I think that it's just simply a different definition of what the jhana is. Even in ordinary life, types of deep absorbed concentration are rather rare. I mean, the great plague of our civilization these days is the lack of attention, the inability to pay attention, intrusive thoughts, the incapacity to sustain on a single subject deeply, and so forth. So, first of all, the idea of attaining to the fourth jhana is a major accomplishment which can be only achieved with complete withdrawal from the sensory world and a special absorption and high proclivity to deep samadhi, and it must be preceded by a real purification of the of virtue. You just don't do this without a purification of the mind and a great care for thought, speech, and action ahead of time. Secondly, to combine this with the word vipassana. So that's another area that is quite often misunderstood. Vipassana is not a technique. Vipassana is not a technique. Vipassana means to see clearly. Now, you can use certain techniques. You can, it's more like the analytical side of the equation. The jhana is the absorption focus side, and the vipassana is the intelligence and analytical aspect, to see clearly. And so, a person may have great strength. Say, if a person wants to be batting in the major leagues, they might have great strength. They need great strength. But if they don't have sharp reactions and aren't able to hit the ball, the strength will be of no use. But if they're very accurate with hitting the ball, but it doesn't go anywhere, it won't be of any use either. So samadhi, these jhanas, are a strength of mind, a complete ability to steady and focus the mind to such a degree that the external sensory world is gone from consciousness. Consciousness is in a absolutely super normal condition. It is not normal. Most people in their entire lives will never experience a split second of it. It's a super normal condition, extraordinary strength of mind, and then vipassana is extraordinary clarity and understanding. There's an element of wisdom involved in it. So quite often these terms are just misunderstood. So especially vipassana is associated with a kind of a school of meditation, a type of meditation, sweeping the body or this and that kind of meditation. But it is not. It just means to see in a absolutely clear way. To clearly see. And samadhi is extraordinary luminosity and steadiness of mind. So of course these two go together. And in the suttas, usually they're not separated. It's called samatha vipassana. So hyphenate the word samatha, meaning the samadhi, the jhanas, vipassana, meaning clarity, focused clarity. So it's good to go back over this and make these terms meaningful to one, and to see that they go together harmoniously and are necessary. So you can be, you could be a very intelligent person but unable to concentrate. This happens to people. They go to university, they got a very high IQ, but they have emotional trouble and so forth, and they, despite their intelligence, they can't focus. And then there are others who can focus, but they don't have the agility and quick grasp of the situation. So these two things are more or less the analysis of the mental requirements for achieving enlightenment. So it's good to just define those things. Yeah. Next question.
Next question is from Garrett in Los Angeles, California. I struggle with smoking marijuana and haven't gone more than 7 days without smoking in 7 years. Any advice on dealing with withdrawals and ending the habit completely?
Yeah, I think that you're probably at the beginning of ending it right now because you want to. So you got to focus on, well, why do you want to? What is it that makes you want to? Other people have no intention of quitting. And so there must be you must feel there's something wrong with it. And that is to be lauded. Your sense that this is not helping you. This is not good for you. You have a certain sense of shame that you're doing something that maybe gets you through the hour or the afternoon or the day, but at the same time is clouding your capacity to solve the riddles of life. And the great riddle is, why do I suffer? And in order to address that, you need a heightened clarity of mind, extraordinary clarity of mind. And marijuana is not noted for giving you heightened clarity of mind. So that's something that you should play that up, and you realize that you are feeling a little bit disgusted with yourself because you are yielding to a temporary pain relief here, and you need to instead face and solve the true issue. Play up that within yourself, and it will fall away quite naturally. As far as withdrawal and everything, when people quit things, when they go on a diet and quit drinking and everything, they have to actually commit to some pain. It sounds like I'll quit drinking and everything will be great. I'll quit the dope and everything will be great. I'll go on a diet and I'll feel great. No, actually you'll feel pain for quite some time until you accomplish your goal. So it's a commitment to pain. The mind wants to swing back to normal, by the way. It doesn't like that discomfort. So the mind wants to go back to its set point, and that's when it will rationalize. And what will happen is you might, in fact, decide to quit smoking dope, and then there's a strange paradox comes up, and that is that you feel like you need to smoke a little dope to reinforce the decision not to smoke dope. So this happens with cigarettes as well. A person decides to give up smoking cigarettes, and then they usually decide that while nicotine is in their system, and they feel quite normal. So It feels normal and well to have nicotine in your system. But as that withdraws, what you need in order to reinforce that lucid decision you made when you were normal is another cigarette. You need a cigarette to reinforce the intention to quit smoking. So this is what happens. These are the tricks of the mind. So one has to face the bare results. The other side of this is that you need to give yourself some alternative benefits. So you need to replace that with something that you feel very positive about, that gives you an uplift, that gives you a positive result. So you need to come up with some rewards for your determination to brighten the mind, clean it up. You need some contrary, so I don't know, a membership at the pool or go surfing or something that you like and is a reward and does not impede your sense of clarity and well-being. So you need to say, I need balancing rewards for my good efforts in undoing this mere habit of mine. So that's something, you need something to replace it, and but has to be wholesome and beneficial to you. So those are a couple of strategies for this. But you're probably on the beginning of quitting. If it comes up for you and you have to ask this question and you want advice, you're probably on the road to quitting one way or the other. You just need skillful means to do so. Okay, next question.
Next question is from the live chat from Chris in Montreal, Canada. Dear Ajahn Sona, my question is regarding Buddhism versus Advaita Vedanta or non-duality. I have felt drawn to both teachings over the past years. Are they compatible?
Advaita Vedanta is a modification of types of Hindu teachings, Vedic teachings. And you must understand a bit of the history here. What happens in history is that different religions and cultures influence each other and synthesize things. And quite often people are unable to distinguish what is being added to a situation. So if you go to Mexico, you'll find all kinds of interesting syncretic additions to Christianity with folk religions being mixed into it. If you go to Thailand, which is said to be a Theravada Buddhist country, you will find all kinds of interesting Hindu gods and Brahmanic rituals and rites mixed right into the social idea of Buddhism. And frequently, folk practitioners, ordinary practitioners, don't know that these are additions from outside of the mainstream Buddhist teachings. So Vedanta is somewhat modified by its encounter with Buddhism, as many Hindu teachings were. There was a confrontation between the Buddha and many Brahmins at the time. And it wasn't all that friendly. It was a serious matter. And you can read the suttas and you'll see debates, aggression, plots to, in fact, kill the Buddha, etc. So, but then the critique the Buddha laid down, the analysis the Buddha laid down, was so powerful it had to be integrated. And so you get that, and it's taken in and then considered to be part of the teaching. So the Buddha himself has been transformed in India quite often to a avatar of Vishnu, or, he's been made a Hindu deity, where he's not. He denies being a Hindu deity. So this is how things are dealt with quite often in religions. And Buddhism has done the same thing. Especially later schools have taken in, without knowing it, or sometimes consciously or unconsciously, they've taken in forms of Brahmanical ideas, or etc. So this word Advaita, Vedanta, Advaita meaning non-dual. That's usually how it's translated. Not two. Now, first, you'll hear this thrown around, this term in English, non-dual this, non-dual that. What are you talking about, non-dual? Please tell me what you're talking about. I had to trace back, where is this coming from? Non-duality is quite often thought to be some sort of, this enlightenment is the realization of non-duality. Precisely what do you mean by that? What do you mean, not two? I mean, that doesn't tell, this form, this hyphenation, not two. Mean three or one? I guess 3 and 1 are not two. The only thing that's two is two. Everything else is not two. It's such a general term that it has no intrinsic meaning. What do you mean? It's like God, the word God. Ask 20 different sects of Christianity and other Islam, Buddha. Tell me what this word God means. It means intrinsically nothing, but they have all kinds of variations and so forth. So this is where it starts to get blurry. So this is where it is different than mainstream Theravada. You don't find this. The Buddha is not bandying around the word non-dual as a replacement for enlightenment or anything like this. So you got to ask yourself, well, where is this coming from? What do they mean? So in sense, the early meaning of this is that the idea that the Buddha critiqued the idea of an Atman, Atman, the soul. He critiqued the naive definitions of what a soul is. And the naive definitions are that it's a imperishable, eternal, indivisible, your true self, and that it travels through endless reincarnations. And the Buddha, that's his big breakthrough, is he found nothing of the sort. When he looked within himself, he found nothing corresponding to that. He critiqued it and found it to be an impossible definition. By the way, if you look at Christian definitions of the soul, at Thomas Aquinas, and so the church fathers, the philosophical Christians, when they actually get down to defining what they mean by soul, they say the same thing. It's a monad. It's an indestructible, eternal entity, etc. This is exactly what the Buddha says is a misunderstanding, not real, a conceptual error. There is nothing like that. Now that critique had to be dealt with by Brahmanical thinkers and Vedic thinkers, because it's very hard to dispute. It's hard to make sense of consciousness at all if it's not a changing, flowing process. To be conscious is a process. It's not a thing, it's a process. So if your soul is a thing, then it's not conscious. If it's conscious, it's not a thing. Now, so they had to deal with this, okay, that the idea is that the superficial notion of yourself is an illusion. And when that illusion is dispelled, you find yourself not two with Brahma, God himself. So the non-duality of Atman and Mahatman, the great self. So this is, in that school, you're discovering your true self or your higher self or your great self. In Buddhism, it's not referred to in any sense that way, because the Buddha doesn't have this concept of an absolute overarching deity at all. He simply says there is no substantial self. Anatta, that's his big point. No self. Not the abolition of a little self and the replacement of it with a great self. he's saying denying the nature of self. And so the non-duality of you and God in Hindu teachings, the idea that you are God is not a problem at all. It's a very common expression. And this is a kind of, this comes up in other philosophies and other even variants in Christianity, where how can you be anything else than God? If God created you, aren't you God, etc. So this is not the Buddha's, he doesn't address this at all. He doesn't start with the idea of God to begin with. So he doesn't have that issue to deal with, and no union with or vanishing into, etc. So this is where there's some problems of terms and understanding, and it requires some careful analysis and realization that there are two different languages, and that Buddhism primarily is simply not concerned with God. There are gods, and they have very little to do with your search for enlightenment. And there is no definition of a creator of the universe whatsoever. The question of the universe, its beginning or creation or any of that, is left as simply an unanswered question, which is a waste of time to even inquire into. And so this is a fairly, this can form distant, differences. So I won't, I'm not a specialist in Advaita Vedanta. So I won't give I'm not going to give advice to people who are following that or anything like that, but you might want to research the origins of this and the interplay between powerful ideas that the Buddha came up with and the adaptation and integration of that into some Brahmanical teachings and Vedic teachings, etc. So this requires a good deal of historical study and careful, more or less, philosophical scrutiny. Yeah.
Next question is from Anonymous in the United States. Lungpo Sona, I am disheartened after hearing your talk on right view. I was not a feral child, but a child emotionally isolated and trained to behave properly. My grief after my mother died was that I had not had a mother. So without that family connection, I feel that I have no chance of progressing. In decades of meditating, I have never settled deeply. I can just keep on keeping on, but I am discouraged. Any advice?
Yeah. So I think we need to clarify that question. She was referring to a talk I gave on right view, and one of what's called mundane right view, like the first sort of basic right view that Buddhism teaches is there is mother, there is father. You have parents. You're a human. You're not a fish. And humans don't do well if they are excreted into the ocean as an egg. That's not how it works, guys. You are not raised in a lab tube. You are not raised in a plastic bubble in a crib where nobody touches you. You have caregivers. And what happens to children if they are not given human concern and care is terrible. It distorts and has grave results. So the child needs and requires and is owes a debt to those who raised them and took care of them, because you don't survive without that. And if you're not well raised, there can be grave consequences, problems. So this is like, you have to acknowledge you have a debt to those who gave you life to begin with. And maybe your parents died when you were a month old. This happens. But somebody raised you. And that connection, that some sort of form of goodwill and loving kindness towards your caregivers is necessary to your emotional development later on. So this is what the question is, and she says she wasn't a feral child. So a feral child is one who is, raised by wolves and so forth. And you can find apparently historical incidences like this, and they never recover from that experience. They never become fully human. But her mother was distant or problematic, and so she's saying this has affected her capacity to truly concentrate and so forth. And this is a very big school now, has come to the fore in modern psychology. This is the problem of alienation and anxiety in the formative periods when you're very young with the parent. If the parent is distant and unable to, is very anxious and alienated, then the child can be traumatized by this. And that trauma lasts through and creates problems later on, and especially ADHD, for instance, the inability to focus and concentrate, and all kinds of little weird side effects as well. There's a very good analysis of this by Gabor Mate, Dr. Gabor Mate, and he talks quite a bit about this problematic, the results of the mother-child connection in very early life, and having it playing out throughout the rest of one's life. Now, what can we do about this? So what is missing is this primal thing of love. So the primal emotion of love is not picked up early in the child's life. The feeling and love is safety. So look at the Metta Sutta, the Sutta on loving kindness. So this is a primary emotion. And the characteristic of loving kindness is it makes you feel safe. And if you're in childhood, if your parents are alarmed and anxious, and you pick that up, then you will not really know the sense of safety. You won't know how to generate that. And so to walk around in a state of lack like that is painful. Love is a painkiller. When you're full of love, you're full of pleasure. And if you don't know how to do that, then you're going to be in a state of deprivation or pain. So this is been observed in other philosophies and religions, that hell is the absence of love. It's just so. Also, the ghost realm. The ghost realm is this emptiness, this internal emptiness that one has. It's a lack of love, and you don't get it from outside. The lack is your own inability to love, and love is the pain reliever. So people can kind of get a sense of this through certain drugs, which are painkillers: morphine, heroin, other types of strong opioids like that. For a little while, give that person who does not have the emotional capacity to experience love, gives them relief. It in a crude way emulates love. So they become actually in love with the drug. So you got to learn how to generate your own opioid, your self-produced opioid that is called love. There's a famous saying by Marx. He says, religion is the opioid or the opium of the people. Have you heard this saying? Think about that. Religion is the opium of the people. And what does he mean by opium? That's quite common in the 19th century. It wasn't even illegal at that time. And people took opium to relieve the difficulties of life, both physical pain and emotional pain. Opium relieves that. What was he saying? He's saying that, and he's against organized religion, by the way. Marx wants to get rid of organized religion. He's saying people are addicted to religion because it functions like opium. It relieves their pain. So for some strange reason, Marx wanted to get rid of pain relief in the form of religion. He thought there were other ways to relieve pain and maybe improve the lot of the working class or something like this. But apparently it didn't work because the whole thing fell apart and everybody went back to drinking vodka heavily. So drugs are a painkiller, and good religion is a form of teaching you how to love, and that's also a painkiller. And what's wrong with not being in pain? This is the main thrust of the Buddhist teaching, is to relieve suffering. Don't suffer unnecessarily, but learn how to fabricate it within yourself without taking drugs, which they end up just killing you in the end. So love doesn't. It does the opposite. It improves your well-being and health, eliminates fear and pain, and doesn't have the terrible side effects of drugs. Has no side effect. All the side effects are positive. So this is the nature. So you are going to have to learn how to generate love. And it helps other people inspiring you, other people who can do it, to be around people who have loving kindness, to fake it till you make it, to say it again and again. May I be well and happy and peaceful, and may everybody else be well and happy and peaceful, until you have a moment where you feel well, happy, and peaceful. You say it, you imagine it, you are creative with it, you listen to other people's voices, you use whatever it takes. If great music sweeps you away into loving kindness, use it. If great art does it for you, if great people do it for you, if nature does it for you, you look for a beginning. You must have it just for a flickering second, and then you develop from there. Okay, so you pushed the loving kindness button there, so let's go on to our next question.
Next question is from the live chat from AS in Florida, United States. Can you please explain the hindrance of doubt? And is confidence in the Triple Gem different than faith in the Triple Gem?
Well, let's go to the second question first, confidence and faith. A confidence, I mean, it's the same thing, basically. Saddha is the Pali term, which can be translated as faith or confidence, and the absence of doubt. And that's the mark of what's called entering into the stream. The first stage of enlightenment is where doubts about the teachings of the Buddha fall away, because you've had a direct experience of it. So you have what direct experience? You've seen that. You understand now how suffering arises, that you create your own psychological experience of suffering, because you are in conflict with the world around you. The universe around you is not living up to your expectations. You're making demands and expectations on it, that it provide security and sustained well-being, and it continuously disappoints you. And then you are nervous even when things are going well, you're nervous about it, that pulling the rug out from underneath you and so forth. So you learn that the insight is that it's your attitude towards things that's the problem. So that now you trust the Buddha, because that's all he said. So you got it. Okay, you felt it. You understand how not to create suffering. So that your doubts are evaporated. But before that, you might say, well, I don't know. I just try. He's very famous and he persists through long periods of time, so I just trust it. I haven't experienced it, but I know he's talking about something. I trust that everybody is not fooling me. So that's kind of maybe the difference between just pure faith and then confidence. Yeah. The first question is, what is the nature of doubt? And that is, there's two kinds of doubt. One is which is just a problem, a hindrance, a block to your well-being, and the other one is valid. So you can't just believe everything, can you? So there are certain things that is quite right to doubt. There's all kinds of conspiracy theories and various theories about the origins of the world and space and time and science and politics and all this kind of stuff. Endless. You can't believe everything because they're in absolute conflict with each other, and sometimes. So you have to inquire and resolve those doubts. And it's proper that you should have some skeptical sense towards everything. You can't believe everything that you just fed. No. So the Buddha says those are proper doubts. You've got to have those doubts. And then there are other doubts that you can't solve yourself. And they're about, like, how am I doing in my practice? How far am I in my practice? Did I do that? Do I have loving kindness? Or maybe I'm mistaken because I can't know what it's like for another person, etc. So those kind of doubts are solved two ways. One is by just setting them aside and practicing serenity practice, just doing breath meditation or something like that, not focusing on them. And just the doubt arises because your mind is just moving too fast and creating too many flow of thoughts. And so when you quiet them down, you realize that, it's quite simple. But not until you are calm and focused can you realize that it was just the flurry of activity of your mind that was creating a lot of unnecessary doubt. This can happen in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. when you're half asleep and you're worried and you're trying to solve a big problem about tomorrow, and that because your mind is in a very weakened state, fear arises and paranoia and miscalculations. And then next day after breakfast, when you're wide awake, you think, what was that about? This is nothing. All I have to do is go to the store and get a loaf of bread, Wow, that was something, eh? So you can see that the state of mind you're in can create doubts, and this changing the state of mind can answer the doubts as well. So you got to realize that. So you learn to not believe the doubts all the time and just go to serenity practice. The other option is you go and see somebody who knows about that area. You go to a specialist who can relieve your doubts by giving you specific information and helping you sort through these things. So that's the value of an experienced teacher. So if you're going to learn music, very good to go to a musical teacher, because you can fool around and use very inadequate approaches to learning music, bad techniques and so forth, mistakes that could be bypassed by hearing the voice of another that has some experience with this. So that's another way. Doubt is a hindrance, is a psychological problem because, so the Buddha gives a simile, it's a caravan leader is going to trade goods in a far country, and they have to cross wilderness and bandit-ridden areas. And they haven't been there before. They come to a crossroads, and they don't know which way to go to get to the place to trade the goods and make the money and go back home safely. So they're stuck at the crossroads. And the bandits may or may not be lurking in the woods, but it's dangerous to stay at the crossroads. So there's a sense of anxiety. So this is the nature of doubt. You feel like you must make a decision, but you don't know which road to go on. And if you make the wrong decision, it could turn out badly. Relief comes, so they do choose a road and they go on it and they sell all their goods and make money, and then they come back and support their families. So that is the sense of relief from resolving a doubt. But in order for that to happen, you need either serenity, which gives you clarity to make the right choice, or you need the voice of an experienced person outside yourself. So that's the nature of doubt and the solutions for doubt.
Next question is from Mark in Australia. Dear Ajahn, I've recently developed an intense social anxiety that triggers attacks when I am with groups of people, family, colleagues, and they last 20 to 30 minutes. I am generally quite social and friendly, but these attacks make me want to just leave and be alone. I feel overwhelming fear and sadness, and I don't know how to deal with it. I am trying to find the answer in Buddhism, but haven't succeeded yet. Do you have any guidance?
Well, first of all, you have to decide on what is what you consider to be a valuable human. And you want to be a valuable human. And primarily, it's not how much money you have or how pretty or handsome you are or how tall or short you are. Those would be very dubious things to stake your sense of value on, because you can lose the money and you will lose the prettiness as you get older, etc. So these are dumb things to establish your value on. What is it that you establish your value on? It is virtue. And so the Buddha gives this, said, if the person who has virtue is committed, say, to the 5 precepts, they are not a threat to anybody else. They're a kind, generous, and lucid person. They're not going to kill you. They're not going to steal from you. They're not going to horn in on no sexual misconduct. They're not going to lie to you. And they prefer to be sober and lucid, not stoned and drunk. This is the valuable person. And until you establish yourself in those virtues, you will have self-doubt. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how handsome you are, how famous you are, etc. It means nothing to your self-esteem. There is only one basis for self-evaluation is, am I a virtuous person? And another way to be a virtuous person is, am I generous, kind, and lucid? I have no ill will towards people. I'm not harboring anger and transgressing the boundaries. I'm not stealing people's stuff and so forth. So this is what makes you a moral person, and this is what gives you self-confidence. So the Buddha says, the peasant who is virtuous can stand in front of the king without the slightest fear or anxiety. And the king, if they can have all the power and money they want and fame, but if they're not virtuous, they are intrinsically insecure. There's no way around this. So this is the solution to your social anxiety. It's like, ask yourself, am I a virtuous person? And if you're not, do something about it. Commit yourself to being a virtuous person. Turn over a new leaf. Walk upright in the world, not a threat to anybody. Honest and with integrity. And then your social anxiety will vanish. Okay, next question.
Next question is from the live chat from Jane. Dear Ajahn, can you say something about how to practice investigation in meditation and in daily life?
Well, investigation is the Dhamma sort of becomes your set point and all the situations you find yourself in, whether the bus is late or whether you got a new job or you lost the job or whether you just had a nice meal or a bad meal, everything will kind of come in the focus of Dhamma. You will see that, oh, this is, if I grasp at this situation, if I'm desiring or aversion, I'm going to suffer. And every situation is uncertain, not ultimately under control. And so that's what investigation is. You investigate that. You investigate your own body. You investigate the feelings in your body, the thoughts that you have, the emotions that you have. You look at the world around you, understanding the nature of the bodies of living beings, that they're all in an uncertain and vulnerable condition. You see the entire universe is in this endlessly changing and uncontrollable structure. And then that's investigation. That's true investigation, which leads to the only solution. The solution is to change your attitude towards this structure. That you can't win within the functional universe of imaginable existences. It's a no. You ultimately can't win, so you stop. Okay. Next question.
Next question is from Richie in Isle of Bute, UK. Dear Ajahn Sona, does the third factor of enlightenment, energy, also mean determination, i.e. as when one rouses energy to accomplish something, as in right effort?
Well, I mean, you could blend it, but there's no need to blend it. Energy is one thing and determination is another. And determination is a factor which can maintain energy. That's something to practice. You make a determination and you carry it out. And sometimes your energy wanes and that affects your determination. But your determination can overcome your exhaustion sometimes. You're determined to get up every morning and show up at work exactly on time. And so even though you feel fatigued and out of energy, your determination is such that you will push through it. You see some of these remarkable athletes doing these long-distance type things, triathlons and marathons and ultra-marathons. And it's an incredible act of determination about it. They do, in fact, run out of energy, and yet they keep going. So we can see that they're useful concepts, and they're not identical, but they can play off of each other. They can mutually support each other.
Next question is from the live chat from Michael in Texas. Hello, I'm not a formal Buddhist, but I want to work at a grocery store that sells meat. Is this a mistake, even though I haven't dedicated myself to Buddhism, as in haven't taken the refuges, etc.?
No, it's not an ethical conflict. The ethical matter is that you personally don't choose to intentionally kill animals. You can't be responsible for all of the third and fourth level ramifications of meat and so forth. Somebody perhaps has killed the animal. Not all animals, like as in war, a lot of people get killed and weapons are invented that kill people, but also there are also beneficial side effects. If you end up getting the shoe in a desperation war situation, somebody has no shoes and then somebody is killed, and then you find that you can use their shoes. So this is the issue. The ethical issue is intentional killing. And one does not want to spread it beyond that. Now, you may want to, as an act of conscience, you may say, yes, but I want to do some positive things. So I want to work in a Whole Foods store where they don't sell meat. Fine, that's great. But don't feel unnecessary guilt about being some cog in a wheel of merchandising meat or leather belts or leather shoes or leather car seats or something like that. You drive yourself mad in trying to extricate yourself from this second and third and fourth order of entanglement. So the Buddha clarifies this. Whoever intends and carries out the killing is the negative karma. The other secondary things are not necessarily karmic, and nobody should say they are. The Buddha is very careful. He says very specifically, meat, fish, and fowl, bird flesh, are perfectly pure in three respects. In other words, to eat them or use them in three respects is that they're not. That you do not kill them for that purpose, or you do not ask somebody else to kill them for you. And in a store that sells meat, you didn't ask somebody to kill that animal. That's way down the line. Somebody else did kill the animal, and somebody asked them to kill it, but you didn't. So this secondary purchase, and lots of committed vegetarians are very confused about this point. The Buddha is not, and emphatically declared that the mere intake of meat is not, there's no intentional negative action. It's just like a blood transfusion. There's no transfusion, or using the heart. Somebody is killed in a motorcycle accident, or murdered, and you need a heart transplant. So you get the heart from somebody who's been murdered. You didn't ask somebody to murder them. You didn't murder them yourself. The use of that heart is perfectly pure, but it's the intentional killing is the problem. The person who killed that person is still got a problem. What happens afterwards has no karmic side effects. So you got to get this straight in your mind. But it doesn't mean that it's perfectly good to say, I give up, I'm going to be a vegetarian because I don't like the ethics of the animal processing thing. That's perfectly fine. But don't think that you are intrinsically guilty. If you eat meat, that you're intrinsically guilty of killing animals. You're not. There are two different functions there. Now, you may or may not decide to be an ethical vegetarian in order to reduce the amount of slaughter that happens. It's very, very admirable. It's very good, but don't get confused about the ethical structures of this.
Next question is from the live chat from Haley. Doing the five subjects for frequent recollection, I sometimes skip over the reflection on separation. My intuition is that there's work I need to do here. I'm not sure how to proceed. Any advice?
Yeah. What's her name?
Haley.
Haley. Well, this is the five subjects are I am in the nature to die, to get ill, to age, and all that I have, beloved and pleasing, will become separated from me. I will lose. And then the last one is I'm responsible for all my ethical decisions. So whatever I do, for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. I will inherit the good things and bad things I've done in my life. I'm the inheritor of those. So, but the fourth reflection is, all that I have, beloved and pleasing, will become separated from me. I shall lose them. So that happens all the time in life. And that, you'll, one way or the other, you're going to lose everything. Everybody loses everything. You lose your parents, you lose your children, you lose the loves of your life, you lose your pets, you lose your money, you lose, because at least when you die, you're separated from all of those things. And many of those things may be separated from you before you die, so your loved ones die before you. This is the nature of reality, and you got to reflect on this. This is for sure. In the end, you lose everything. Everything goes. So how are you with this? Should you just be depressed about that? Rage against it? Pray to God it won't happen? I mean, they have to reorder the universe to make that not happen. So, or invent some sort of fantasy where it doesn't happen. Some sort of realm where you persist eternally and you never lose anything. So the Buddha denied the reality of all of those things. He says there's no realm possible where it ultimately does not end, that you don't lose in. And even in the Buddhist version of heaven is something that, although very pleasant and lasting for tremendous lengths of time, ends at some point. So he's onto this idea, the scientific idea of entropy. Everything in the end falls apart, no matter how. Whatever has a nature to arise also has a nature to cease. And that includes all concepts of such places as heaven, or such situations as heaven. Even that ends. So we have to get our minds around this. Otherwise, we really will be shocked and suffer a lot. And there is a way to be with to hold it lightly, not to give up on loving or sharing or doing things, but to realize in the midst of this shall not last. This can't last. I must be prepared to let it go. When it goes, I must be prepared to let it go. Okay, so I think we're at the end of our Q&A for today. And we shall, if things go well, and of course the universe is unpredictable, but we aim to be here next